Welcome to Venture 360 podcast. I'm Saeed Zeinali, a proud Torontonian and founder and CEO of NextStars, a truly connected global entrepreneurship ecosystem. I'm an immigrant entrepreneur myself who built and exited Tranquil, Canada's leading online mental health platform, and I've since helped over 200 startups scale globally. Today's conversation is Invested in Toronto, conversations on innovation and growth. And that future depends on one thing. We need more entrepreneurs. Not just a few standouts, but an entire ecosystem of builders, risk takers, and innovators. We need that Blue Jays esprit where everyone works together, supports each other, and pushes through to that seventh game against all the odds. Joining me today are two leaders working to make that happen. Stephen Lund is president and CEO of Toronto Global, the team that's brought over 300 investments and 35,000 jobs to our region from companies like Netflix, Unilever, and Reddit. With over 30 years in banking, venture capital, and economic development, Stephen knows what it takes to attract world-class talent and capital to Toronto. Shelley Carroll is Toronto City Councillor for Don Valley North and the city's budget chief and mayor's economic development and culture champion. She chairs the Toronto Police Service Board and sits on the boards of Toronto Global and Destination Toronto. From delivering balanced budgets through the financial crisis to championing community-driven solutions, Shelley works to make Toronto livable, affordable, and economically vibrant. Together, we'll explore how foreign investment, homegrown talent, and newcomer entrepreneurs can work as one winning team for our city and our country. So without further ado, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. So Toronto has become a magnet for both global companies and ambitious entrepreneurs. How do these two forces, foreign investment and homegrown entrepreneurship, work together to strengthen our city's economy?
Well, we really have an ecosystem developing here, such that there's real reason to come and be here and join the entrepreneurs already on the ground. We have some standouts. We have unicorns we can brag about at this point. Cohere just did a major MOU with the federal government and are a huge part. They stand proudly alongside OpenAI in terms of what they can do for firms that come here. Out in Don Mills, it's not all just happening around the universities. Out in Don Mills, we have Tens Torrent that is producing and doing research and development in AI chips. Things like that are reasons to be here and be alongside. Tens Torrent is a good example because they have now moved their headquarters to California, to Silicon Valley, but they're staying here for the chip development and the R&D because of the talent that's here. So it's really about who wants to come and join, but there's certainly enough support that entrepreneurs like Tens Torrent being a good one, Wealthsimple, another unicorn, they demonstrate that we are supporting unicorns enough that they can really grow and scale here.
Let me add to that,
Yes.
what the councillor just said. We talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about attracting international business. It's not one or the other. We need both. Like Toronto is a vibrant center for many types of businesses. If you just take a look at the tech scene, over 2,000 startups in Toronto, in the Toronto region, leading the country in so many respects, one of the fastest growing tech centers in North America. That's a vibrant tech ecosystem. Attracting the right international companies adds to the ecosystem. When we bring in a new company, it's net new jobs. What they're doing is they're setting up here, they're hiring local talent, they're adding to the ecosystem. And if you look at the spin-off effects, their spin-off effects include so many companies, so many entrepreneurs, so many young companies that feed into that ecosystem. Not only that, but all these employees, they're new employees in new companies. They're out buying cars, they're buying houses, they're working with local communities. So the ecosystem that Shelley mentioned, it's a vibrant ecosystem in Toronto. It's one of the most vibrant in the world today, which includes fantastic local companies, but also fantastic international companies picking Toronto.
Absolutely, and I can tell as I do a lot of travel globally and talk to people leader in different regions, and definitely Toronto is on the radar for business leaders around the world. So the word is out there. So Stephen, why is attracting business investment important, and how do you go about it at Toronto
Sure.
Global?
Why is it important? I think we all recognize all three levels of government, the business community, that we have to grow our economy. I mean, that should not even be a question these days, right? Especially what's going on around the world today, our issues with some of our friends and neighbors. We have to grow our economy. One way to do it, again, is attracting investment. That goes along with new export markets, entrepreneurship, increasing levels of productivity, but attracting new investment is critical. And if I take a look at, for example, if you look at the measure of prosperity for a country, it's measured by gross domestic product per capita. The two top countries in the world today from that measure are Ireland and Singapore, two of the top three. Their economies are driven by attracting international investment in conjunction with building a local economy. So that's why attracting investment is so critical. How we do it? We're a proactive sales-driven organization, right? We're on the phone, we're in an airplane, we're knocking on doors, we're on LinkedIn, we're making connections. And the two things about building that proper climate is it's what you're selling and how you're selling. What you're selling is Toronto. We're selling Toronto. We can talk more about that. We're selling the talent of Toronto. How you do it, like the world knows Toronto, the world knows Canada, but they don't know Toronto and they don't know Canada. Right? That's our job. We have to be out in front of people all the time, knocking on a door, sitting down for a coffee with an executive. Why should you come to Canada? Why should you come to Toronto? That's what we do every day of the year. We're out there knocking on doors. That's how you bring investment to the city.
And we have an admitted productivity issue in Canada. It's nationally admitted. But there's no excuse not to attract what we need, the kinds of businesses that can come in and make the best use of our highly educated population. We have a very educated population, a very young population, and they're waiting to be used to their fullest effect. And if you're looking at us as a nation that right now is not as productive as it could be, what that says is you're coming here and getting engaged in raising that productivity means there's a huge amount of space in which to grow. And so this is the moment to come in because you have all orders of government focused on productivity. And if you're coming here with a productivity pitch for us, and that's what you think you can help us with, certainly in the tech space, that's what they're coming to sell. We're buying. As a nation, we're buying in. If you've got a solution, we want to adopt.
And it's also, you mentioned productivity, it's helping our local companies become more productive, primarily by investing in people and technology. Combine that with attracting productive companies. If we're bringing in the world-class companies, like you see on the wall there,
Absolutely.
they are highly productive companies. They're world leaders, right? You bring those companies into an ecosystem, it raises the bar for everybody.
Absolutely. And to Councillor, I know immigration is sits at the federal level, but cities also play a major role in shaping the conditions for success. So from zoning to permitting to business services and community connections, what local levers matter most for helping entrepreneurs land and grow in the city of Toronto? And how do you stay proactive in creating that fertile ground for business leaders from all over the world that want to come set up shop here in Toronto?
Well, we haven't had the best reputation if I go well back into the past. So that's something that we're focused on right now is making sure that our newest economic development plan for the city is focused on that. How do we make zoning and permitting easier for someone who wants to be here? We've long had grants for people who want to build new office buildings. We've just recently changed it because post-pandemic, what we know is we have a lot of ready to go real estate right here in the city's financial center and even in some of our suburban business parks. we have a lot of real estate where you could, for instance, construct data centers. And so what we've said to our planning department is, you're now part of the economic development department. You have to do this. And for me, it's not about saying, oh, we've got this special commercial zoning desk. It's the employment desk. If this means jobs, and especially if it means jobs in the pillar where we're focused, tech being the biggest focus, then you're top of the pile on anyone's desk. We have to move on that. And so that's going on right now. But in terms of connections, we also need to do that. We introduced Toronto Tech Week a year ago. Mr. Cosgrove moved on to another city with Collision, and we said, okay, what happens here? And what we did was let the sector itself build the event by having the event take place across the city. So if someone comes here, we're showcasing not just a conference hall where you might listen to whatever sort of tech smash up happens on the stage. We're going to take you to the sites. You're going to see where it's happening all over town. And it really got great feedback. And so we're building that now. That's an annual event so that people coming in can see the growth, can see what's happening, can go and visit on site. So instead of having an event, and over here, if you want to have a bilateral meeting with the leader too, we'll arrange that. No, we're going to take you to. We're going to take you all over town. So that is part of the way we're focused on building connections. But you don't do that alone as a city with your little department on economic development. We went right out into the sector. Satish, who sits on our board, Satish Kanwar, was a big leader in making sure that the sector was involved in it. Toronto Global got involved, had a big reception in one spot so that people could get together in one space and talk about, okay, what have you seen this week? So that we're always looking for ways to make connections insofar as a public sector organization can do. What we know, though, is that the sector took it from there. People did follow up on the people they met, and we understand that was popping all over town for weeks afterwards.
I can very much a lot of what you said resonates with me as an immigrant entrepreneur myself, but also we work day in, day out with business leaders from all over the world that want to come to Canada, and at its core, it's a personal decision. So yes, of course, it has to be, economically makes sense, but do I really see myself being part of that community? And I think that's where we shine. That's what Toronto is a city that everybody has very positive feelings towards. Like I said, they know it, but maybe they don't really know what are the opportunities here. But it's a city that everyone can come and call home and be part of a greater, and the community gets together and certain events, and it feels like togetherness, but you don't have to change necessarily yourself to become a Torontonian.
And some of our connectors are changing as we go along. The Black Entrepreneurs Alliance has existed for a long time, but it has, because the young people who keep entering that organization, more and more are coming to it with their software and tech training, is becoming a tech-driven organization. And those are the types of events it's going to, where the city can help is saying, okay, BEA, you've got together 200 businesses. How can we help you get to Collision, get to Web Summits, things that are beyond their reach? A city can sometimes help just through organization and bulk travel arranging can help them get where they need to go, so that we're showcasing entrepreneurs, but they organize themselves together first through that alliance.
Yes, we shouldn't also lose sight of the fact that Toronto is still like the fastest growing city in North America. And we talk about the crane index. I mean, there are more cranes in Toronto out of 14 major cities than the next 13 cities combined. We are the third biggest tech center in North America. We're the fastest growing tech center in North America. There was a survey done of countries around the world asking the question, what country would you want to move to if you leave your own country? And Canada was number one. And Toronto is like first and foremost in major centers in terms of quality of life, many of those factors. So like we have such a strong base to work with. It's already in place. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I saw some of those prints on the way to beautiful offices of Toronto Global today from Richmond Hill. So Canada's success in attracting international investment depends on strong coordination between federal, provincial, and municipal partners. So what's working well today?
I think that word you just used, coordination. Like each level of government has their own mandate and their own way to do things and their own priorities. But I think fundamentally, they have to agree on a common vision. And the common vision is to grow the economy, among others. But when I look at that, we have to be aligned. And the council mentioned it earlier that, that even on productivity, we're all talking about it today. The need to increase productivity, increase exports, and attract new investment. And I'll give you a perfect example. So we were both an announcement recently, a company Medicare, which was a combination of a South Korean company and a Brazilian company, got together, set up an operation here in Toronto. So that started with, a connection in Korea, and then working with the federal government's operation in Korea, and involving the province, involving the city, because the company, when they come here and they set up here, they need the support from all levels of government. And when they're here, right, you can't just walk away. The council and her team needs to work with them. They need to be comfortable if they need any help on permitting or any other type of help. And also to showing the love that we want them here, we want them to be successful. So if you look at every level of government, every level has a role to play, but at the end of the day, they have to think of what's the end game? The end game is growing the economy. And I think if we don't have that, we're in trouble. And I think fortunately we have that now in Canada.
You'll find an authority, a corporation, however you want to form it, similar to what Toronto Global does at every order of government now, because we've gotten away from. We were just talking about this recently. We've gotten away from the superficial and the ceremonial with regards to governments doing economic development. It has to be intentional, very, very intentional. It's moving too fast not to be. And that's where you set up the arm's length. Stephen's organization can go nimbly to another country. They're not organizing something around a prime minister, premier, or mayor's schedule. They're just going and acting on anyone's interest. And that's happening at all orders of government and sometimes together now. So governments are now, it's more about maintaining that culture that we've had. In Toronto, we've had this culture for over 100 years ago. 55 years ago, think about it. My father's job in Don Mills for Gulf Oil was welcoming the incoming. Oil companies were the people importing skills from around the world. And his job was to take that person and find the accommodation for him and his family, get them feeling welcome. He happened to have 3 daughters, so he did a lot of babysitting of newcomers while they went house hunting from their apartment to neighborhoods that I now represent as a councillor. So it's continuing that culture of, if you get here and you decide, then we got to make it work. We got to help you make it work. And so for governments, it's making sure these types of corporations are out doing the job, bringing the interest here. And then when it gets here, we have to embrace. The governments have to do the embrace job. So, yes, the prime minister just went to Asia, and that's great. You kick the tires, but you also make sure that they understand when you get here, we've got these organizations that are going to concierge your business into place.
And it does have an impact. I can just mention that we're getting some calls actually from those countries that are looking to, for some help in setting shop here. And we're going to connect them with Toronto Global as the main gateway. So, but as you mentioned, that coordination has to follow through as the business leader arrives here in Toronto. So once entrepreneurs arrive, and Councillor, mainly towards you, what can cities like Toronto do to ensure they quickly become part of the local innovation and business community? You touched on it a little bit, but what resources are available through maybe some of the local players, like accelerators, mentorship, like some procurement opportunities? Because a lot of also the entrepreneurs that we work with, they're the business are a little bit at the earlier stage.
Yes.
They have maybe some proven technology in other market, a little bit of so what I call dirt under their fingernail. You know, they know what they're doing,
Yeah.
but they think that Toronto is going to give them that platform to grow big. So what is available right now, and how can we improve on that in the city to support these entrepreneurs?
Well, it needs improvement. So that's what we're working on now. You mentioned procurement, and we haven't been the most accessible. We love our regulations in Canada, and never more than at the municipal level. So we've regulated ourselves to a point where sometimes it doesn't feel like that door is open wide enough. And so we're changing that, especially with that regards to tech. I think that the biggest potential that we have, particularly in our community as a capital city for a province, we're the largest assemblance of healthcare systems. You just think of the University Health Network. The potential there for tech is just off the scale of anywhere else in the world, because it's all publicly funded. It really should be focused on groundbreaking. And so there's that huge network. We have our municipality government is actually larger than most of the provinces in Canada, because we're so large. We're without peer, really, Toronto. We're larger than Montreal by the size of Vancouver. So we don't actually have a peer. What we have is a huge municipal sector employing 60,000 people across vast systems of transit, police. So there's tons of potential there. What we haven't been is big adopters. So you get to the procurement door and the answer is we're not ready. We have to be ready, because if you have a startup that developed here, we want you to stay here. If you've come here to access that potential, we want you to have that access.
Yes.
And so we're working as fast as humanly possible right now to make sure that we become adopters across divisions. There's an incentive award internally to demonstrate that your division has been open to the potential in your department, and awards are given to the employees who go out and adopt through procurement. So we're opening that huge pathway to people, but we also need to do the mentorship piece. And our economic development has now set actual KPI. How often have you reached out? What new business did you access and really make feel that the supports are there for you in EDC? What existing businesses have you got to see to make sure that they're comfortable here and they've got all they need and they're connected to the other businesses in the cluster? So there's a lot more intention to the work being done there, because they're actually setting performance targets to do it. Yeah.
I 100% I agree. I think help that mentorship, that's gonna really help them to supercharge their growth in the ecosystem, because often, you know, they come with the knowledge, the entrepreneur comes with the know-how, but they can't map that success that they've had to the new market. And also for policymakers, I was reading a report the other day. It was very interesting that like foreign-born Canadians have a higher chance of starting business by twice as the Canadian-born entrepreneurs. The caveat is that they need 7 years to really integrate in the ecosystem.
But look at the other side too.
How can we shorten that?
If you but if you look at the US and look at the companies in the US, seem like 40 or 50% of the CEOs of tech companies are foreign-born in the US, right? And also, the average age of a successful CEO in Silicon Valley is something like 44 years old.
Yes.
Which means they come to the US or they come to Canada, they start a business, it might not work, they start another one, they gain that experience, they work with the community, and then, you know, eventually they're successful, but it's not like they come day one, right? But once they're here, can you shorten the timeline? Absolutely. And that's where the network comes in, the community comes in, and there's so much more we can do to help that shorten that timeline you talk about.
7 years really is too much. We do a thing every year called the Toronto Small Business Forum. It just happened last week, actually. And It started out as just a Main Street retail businesses sort of thing. And
Yeah.
come in and we'll help you, and because we wanted those to survive and our main streets to survive, because they're a big feature of the city. They're what makes it a livable city. But it's grown beyond that now. It's quite extraordinary. There are 5,000 businesses register for it every year, and 1,700 of those were in-person
Yes.
delegates this year. But what's happened is the nature of it has changed. It's not just Main Street retail businesses anymore. Tech innovation is there, and now it's small businesses who want to reach the Main Street and survive. And they end up accessing, while they're there, they end up accessing their cultural communities. They get a much better sense of the Economic Development Corporation, because what we do is, it's not just the event team at ECDEV running it. What we do is take every single sector specialist, put them all in that room for the day, so that you make a lot of those connections, and then we know you and you know us, and now we start getting them together. And that's a form of acceleration in and of itself. By running that one event, we may not have the funds to run, a standalone accelerator that's in one place that you can walk in the door of constantly. But by connecting to people and then running that big connector event once a year, we're connecting them to the financing they need. There may be a boutique financing firm that's much better suited to your needs than where you are at the moment, and you find it there. And so it's events like that and Toronto Tech Week, all of those are designed to try and speed up that need for connection that shortens the 7 years, and you're able to then scale on your own.
Yes, and so the question for both is, how can entrepreneurship and investment work together to boost Canada's productivity and drive innovation here at home?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, in terms of driving innovation at home, for us, it's making sure that people understand who all is here, because it's not just one part of the sector in terms of innovation, but it's everything from the infrastructure you need. I use Tenstorrent as an example. People don't realize that the semiconductor business is here. Our province is focused on creating the power that's needed to grow the sector. So all of the building blocks of an innovation sector, right up to whatever is the front-facing retail reach out to the general public as customers, is in one place in terms of being in the city. And so what we're trying to do is drive people to understand how deep that is, that it truly is an ecosystem. We're not just using that because it's the word of the month. It's everything from the ground up. And it's all here, which means that if you're doing R&D and you're coming up with a solution, chances are the infrastructure for that solution exists here, so that anything you need to create the perfect package is here. We're looking in the city for the perfect package agent developer. There are 1,001 municipal functions that need an AI agent to make them more efficient.
Yes.
And what we need is for the people developing that to understand that anything you're going to need to fill that need for us, you're going to find in our tech and innovation ecosystem.
Just to pick up on that,
Yeah.
we're talking about productivity, right? So, like, what is productivity? Like, we hear that word all the time, right? And we know we have to, like, the gap in Canada and the US has been growing, the productivity gap. We're not as productive. And what does that mean? It just means that every family is poorer off than they were before, if you look at productivity. So we all recognize we have to improve that. But what does that mean, that word productivity? It doesn't mean, we want people to work harder and longer hours and stuff. And what it means is doing things smarter and doing things better and more efficiently. And that could mean everything from having companies invest more in their equipment to be more effective and efficient, investing in their people, training their people. It could be using artificial intelligence to do things better. And what all that does is, it just means that if we can enhance those parts of the economy to be more productive, as a society, we're going to be more productive. We're going to have a lot more money to pay for some of the things that we all want, right? And that's what productivity means. And at the end of the day, it's helping our young companies become more successful and more productive and attracting productive international companies. Those two together will make a huge difference if we can do that.
Absolutely, and I think like that activity also would love to see some favorable policies on capital investment, as that also drives really a lot of these productivity-driven initiatives. And the next question is touch on the private and public sector. So many of these solutions require partnerships. You know, what you talked about between governments, industry, academia, and investors. What examples have you seen of effective collaboration? Maybe that you both can talk about what worked very well for some of the big names that we see on the wall here that decided, okay, I want to open up a Toronto office. What we got right for them.
I mean, if you look at it from a high level and say, if you're a company, international company, and you're looking to expand, like what goes into that decision and how are you going to decide? And it could start from, you mentioned the Prime Minister on a trip, promoting Canada. So it starts it could start from that to a provincial rep being involved, to a municipal rep being involved. I think I go back to what we said earlier is like we all have to be singing from the same song sheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are international companies on the wall. They're some of the biggest companies in the world. They could go anywhere.
Exactly.
Right. And oftentimes in a company's decision making, it's find a reason not to go somewhere. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you slip up, if they have a bad experience, they get the wrong people in front of them, it's easy to say no. Right. That's why there are so many steps to go from the first time you meet a company to getting them to set up here. We work with companies sometimes for months, sometimes for years. I can give you examples of companies we've worked with for 5 years before they made a decision. And if we made a mistake anywhere along the line, if the federal government did, the provincial government did, municipal government did, Toronto Global, if we made a mistake anywhere, done deal. Right? That's why we have to be on top of our game, all levels of government, the whole way through the process.
Right? Sure. Do you have something to add to that?
We've had times where a lot of it is just plain problem solving, and you got to be able to pick up the phone and problem solve. You got to know who you're calling. Sanofi is a perfect example, one of the biggest in the big pharma field, and they are everywhere. They could easily say, let's move our Canada plant to this other country. What if we go here or there? And we went through an experience where they needed to expand. And we knew that if we worked with them, we could get there because, they faced some planning challenges and even some provincial regulation challenges in this particular environment. They had a sentimental reason to want to stay because the plant that they function out of, that's in North Toronto, so Northwest Toronto, an area where we badly need employment.
Yes.
And their expansion was going to use advanced manufacturing techniques to be a major producer of vaccines. And so we definitely wanted that to stay in our environment. And their sentimental reason for staying is they had been on that site for over 100 years. Started out as a tiny little building. It's where they invented insulin, basically. And so they had museum reasons to want to be here, but facing every hurdle possible, including that while they started out in the country where manufacturing is easy, the city grew right up to their borders. So there's a residential neighborhood right on the other side of their fence now. So that's a challenge for any industry. But we worked together with them. We got to the provincial government right away and flagged that while planning and zoning and permitting is a mixture of municipal and provincial, we better all get in the boat and row, because this is a massive expansion and the most meaningful place in town to create employment. We've all got to problem solve here, and we did it. We managed to do it. And, hundreds of thousands of eggs get trucked in there 24 hours a day, and the vaccine is created for the next flu vaccine. And they're very happy with the result. But man, oh man, did it ever take all of us getting in the boat and rowing. And the city's got to be ready to do that and know who to call to be able to do that. And now we maintain those connections. when we go to the EU, want to drop in on Sanofi and say, we're still so happy to have you in Canada. Those connections have to be maintained. Yeah.
I didn't know the backstory.
Yeah, it was quite
Wow.
heavy lifting assignment to keep
That's
them in
amazing.
that site. And go and see it sometime. They're
Yeah.
very proud of it.
And Canada competes obviously globally for entrepreneurial talent. It's like they're the scarce resource of our time. How do we communicate locally and internationally that Toronto is a place where people can build global businesses with confidence and speed?
Well, locally, that is a challenge, and it's something that I've been working on a lot, particularly in the current term of office, because we don't communicate to our Torontonian residents sometimes that doesn't just happen by accident, that you have to be constantly in the game of economic development, and that's a worthy expenditure of public dollars. It's sometimes hard for people to understand that. What do they see? They see the tip of the iceberg. It's in the newspaper that the Prime Minister went to Asia. That's so the tip of the iceberg. That's just the start. Yes, he went. We're opening up that relationship again. It's going to be a tremendous amount of work for Stephen to do in Toronto Global. Likewise, the provincial government, because we gotta act on that afterwards. So locally, it's important to constantly be to communicate that this is your children's future. That's what I'm working on. My focus has been children and youth for the 20 years I've been in politics. Economic development is working for children and youth in my view. And so that's why I'm in it. But in terms of the communicating it out, we do it on several fronts. That's entirely the mandate of Toronto Global. So I can relax and do all the other, municipal business things, knowing they're doing that. And that's a really important combination. And I think why so many local governments are setting up those arms like corporations. Today I have to talk about buses. Tomorrow I have to talk about police. The next day I'm going to talk about water pipes. Don't drop the ball on economic development, please. My arms like corporation. Yeah.
That's such a good point. Having the general public make the connection between what happens with business trips or business meetings back to reality. So I'm going to give a little example. First of all, one is I was at a function, this is a while ago, and it was more of a personal function, and there was a group of people talking. And this woman said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy. My son graduated and he got a job with XYZ company." And I heard that, and I looked at her and I said, "You're welcome." She had no idea what I was talking about. And I walked away. My team worked for 3 years to bring that company.
Yeah.
And set up and hire people. And they hire students. They hire Canadians, Torontonians, international students. They hire and create new jobs, and they create tax revenue for the budget chief. And then that's why it's so important to make that connection. You have a strong economy, you solve a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Right. And your question about how do we do it? Like, we don't have phones here in our desks, right? Like, we don't answer the phone about people around the world wanting to come here. Happens rarely, but does happen more occasionally. But most of what we do is making connections.
Yeah,
Going out, knocking on a door, having a coffee with somebody. Following, if a person works for XYZ company and leaves that company to go to another company in a senior position, we track them. Like, we stay in contact with him or her as they go through their career. So they're in a position where, we can talk to them seriously about coming back to Canada and setting up here. Or if they're not Canadian, just coming here and setting up here. Yeah.
I admit, I never thought of economic development as a work that's for children. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. And it's exactly true.
Yeah.
We talk about
exactly
employment or youth
we
employment.
get this wrong. There's nothing for them 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful way of putting it.
Think about it. Creating jobs, creating investment, creating tax revenue, But again, back to the councillor's point is, it's real, right? It's providing income and jobs for so many people. That's what economic development is. That's what growing the economy is, right?
I use that analogy often to kind of help new politicians as they join us in council to understand the work they're doing. Make it real for yourself. My urgency around the housing crisis is, well, let me see, my granddaughter's 20 and she's probably gonna be ready to buy something, or at least raise the stakes on what she would rent by the time she's 30. Is there going to be anything there for her? So I put that physical person in my mind.
Economic development.
A sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Economic development. When I started doing it, she and her brother were in grade school. Now they're both studying tech in Waterloo and in Seneca. And if Stephen doesn't get his job right, if I don't get my job right, where are they going to work? And it makes it real and keeps it urgent. And then if I multiply them out to every young person in Toronto, it's a vast wealth of talent. I know that these two are learning great things. I don't have any tech worries at all anymore. I just say, here, make this work. But they're out there with that skill and talent now. And I'm running out of time. We got to get more businesses in here. I need them to have a huge array of places they can work.
Economic development is having my son be successful enough and be able to afford a house without dad's help.
Yeah, and
But
if he can,
yeah,
hundreds of thousands of others will as well.
Yeah. It's raising the bar. Yeah, again, I don't want to overemphasize this because it's so important. It's making the connection between what we do and growing the economy to everyday life, like parents, kids, graduates, making that connection, to finding a career and having a successful career and a successful life.
I want to run a quick teaser about an op-ed that I've written for the futureeconomy.ca, and maybe the crisis around the world that we are facing right now, that could be the catalyst for us to make some quick decisions and think outside of the box, and coordinate better at all levels of the private public sector for a greater good. Because exactly what we are doing, what we're advocating for is for the future of the children, for the future of Canada, for our city, for our province, for our country. So that's a very, very, very powerful way of putting it. And just for the last question is, just looking ahead, if you could each focus on one practical step, a policy, partnership, or mindset shift that would help Toronto's entrepreneurial ecosystem reach its full potential, what would that be?
If I could pick one thing, it's celebrate success. And I say that and back, it's the mindset. Love or hate the US, our closest friends and neighbors. If you look at the culture of Silicon Valley, again, there's pluses and minuses, but what they do right, it's the culture of success. It's if you start a company in Silicon Valley and it fails, that's the next step to success. And I spent time in the venture capital business, right? And we love to talk to people that tried a business before and learn from it, and they're doing it again. In Canada, we have to get away from start a business, it doesn't work. Well, it didn't work. You're a failure, right? We need to celebrate success. We need to encourage entrepreneurs to take a risk. We have to have all levels of government recognize that we're in the risk business, right? And support risk-taking entrepreneurs. And if we can get to that point, then we need to help companies from startup to scale up to maturity, growth and maturity, right? So I think to me, it's that mindset around we have so much going for us. We have so much great success. Let's celebrate it.
Yeah, of course.
I'll tell you, this will seem unrelated, but if there was one thing we could do, it's really the one big ask that the city has had for years. We've been asking for years if we could have a 1% share of the HST in the city of Toronto. And why I've described earlier, we're without peers. But we are also without peers in the world in terms of being a city of 3 million or more and still surviving solely on property tax. Now, that seems like an argument for another day, but it fits here as well. And I'll tell you why. If there's one way in which we're not competitive with other large cities in terms of the way we can compete to attract foreign direct investment, it's being able to provide a substantial property tax break. The reason I can't is it's my only source of revenue. And so we get hamstrung. If we had a source of revenue that actually gives us a bump up when the economy is having a lift, then I've got a way to rebuild my reserves. We just went through the World Series, and the federal government, the provincial government, for the two series, the ACL 7-game series and then the 7-game World Series, our HST and hospitality went through the roof. And they probably made, it's probably like the Taylor Swift conference, six concerts across a week. So that earned those governments $46 million. The World Series spread out a little further, probably made them about $50 million in HST. The city spent about 12 million in policing, and we'll probably make about 300,000 in hotel tax.
Wow.
That's it. And so we don't have access to the economy. If I had it, the first thing that I would do, if I had that $1 billion in new money every year from that 1% share, the first thing that I would do is figure out, okay, what's the incentive that we can deliver to economic development to attract more investment? Because that would be a no-brainer, the first and most efficient use of it. And maybe not $1 billion, but enough to attract.
I'll take $1 billion.
And there'd still be left over for us to fortify our transit system. A lot of problems get solved, but that would be the first and really a small measure, but bang for your buck, to take a quarter of that and say, okay, it's got to be delivered in economic development incentive. Because if we don't use this to make the economy grow, then we won't grow that billion. It's all connected.
I love what you both mentioned, Stephen. Definitely, I've myself built a startup, worked with other startups. I 100% agree. Failure is a step towards success, and I encourage everyone to start a business. Even if they don't make it, they're going to be a much better employee at their prospect company. They're going to bring that entrepreneurial mindset into that organization. And I really hope that your policy suggestion gets in effect before the World Cup that we're going to have. There's going to be a lot of HST collecting in that period. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Stephen and Shelley, for sharing your insights and leadership. Your work is building the foundation for Toronto's next chapter of growth and innovation. And to everyone watching or listening, thank you for being part of this conversation. Think about what Toronto has shown the world in 2013. This is, I remember when a devastating flood knocked out power for 750,000 people. We came back together. In 2019, when the Raptors brought home the championship, we proved we could fight through against the odds. And that Blue Jays spirit, working together, pushing through that 7th game, that's what we are made of in this city. Toronto leads through challenges. Toronto stands tall, from the Toronto-Kitchener-Waterloo corridor becoming one of North America's most dynamic tech ecosystems to entrepreneurs launching businesses in every neighborhood. We are building something remarkable here. Whether you're an entrepreneur, investor, policymaker, or a community builder, you have a role to play. Thank you so much, everyone. Follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay connected. Let's all live the spirit of Toronto together, resilient and always pushing forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.